Welcome to Western's Association of Retired Faculty presentation on retirement financial education. Our first speaker is Nick Bond, who is a wealth advisor at Mercer Advisors, which used to be Sanford Financial. Our second speaker is Chuck Henrick, who is a registered investment advisor and owner of Southwest Michigan Financial.
Okay, picked it back up. Thank you. All right. So as I just mentioned, what happens during incapacity? Who is in charge of your affairs, financial and medical decisions, and beyond lifetime? How do you want your assets protected? Things like a trust can stipulate beyond your lifetime where that money goes and to who and when, or just making sure that your beneficiaries are updated. As simple as that. If you get divorced, make sure you update your beneficiary. If you still have your ex-spouse named, they are legally entitled to those assets when you die, and that has happened, unfortunately. Not thinking about your investment strategy. TIAA makes it really easy. You have a set menu. It's about 20 investments. Half of them are target date funds. So in finding that, it's typically a behavioral process. You're given a menu of so many options. It's limited. People typically, throw a dart or just pick the easy button, the age-based fund or the risk-based fund. Beyond retirement, there are boxes outside of what TIAA offers. Or is a structure like an IRA, where you can have more of a self-directed platform, things offered outside of the set menu, in other words, that your employer provides. There is no magic bullet. I mentioned that. I'm a big believer in diversification. I am not a believer in the rule of thumb. So taking the plan into account of your wealth and what we think that needs to translate into as far as spending, that should determine how risky your portfolio should be. What type of risk should you be willing to take? So we can do all the academic studies, all the charts, all the graphs, but it's also a human condition of people just get fearful when the markets go down. So some of the behavioral coaching, just understanding, what is risk? So if everybody that has TIAA, if your money's diversified in funds, risk of it going to zero is very low. You own single stocks, though, however, single investments, the risk of that going to zero is fairly high, higher than zero. So I have just some data up here, but this goes back 20 years now. I can't read this on my screen, but just to tell us how it was compiled. But JP Morgan actually does a study where they can pull data based on retail investors, where their money is flowing. Say the average investor has done not so great over 20 years. Would have been better just putting your money passively in the stock market. There's some dips and dives along the way, and that's where some people tend to jump out when the market goes down. But there's also a smarter way to build the index. So this is a measuring stick, the S&P 500. Most people have heard of that, or the Dow Jones. Those are measuring sticks. On the far right, this is what we call a diversified multiple factor index. So the S&P 500 uses one factor. It's just a fancy way of saying we're trying to use data to build a better mousetrap to identify anomalies in the stock markets. Say, well, maybe we're better off to build something that's not as passive as the market. Just over time showing the global factor outperformance versus the global stock market in the US. Talking lastly about highly concentrated positions. This might not apply to anybody in this room. But those would be investments typically outside of a retirement plan. Think about how much capital gain you have built up in that position. Is there a better way to realize your capital gains, avoid taxation, diversify? Is there a better route to do that? And gifting, if you're charitably inclined or to family, it's always a great option too. So 7 options: lack of a financial plan, no net worth, and again, just some easy solutions we put together here on the right side. So what we do at Mercer is help you with all this process, everything on my screen. We have a team in-house of tax planning professionals, estate planners. I am a wealth advisor, so I'm like the quarterback on the team with the 1,100 other employees behind me around the country. I'm going to move on to my next topic here, and it is 227. Trying to be mindful of time for Chuck and questions. So in preparing for retirement, we call this the retirement green zone. What is the retirement green zone, Nick? Well, I have a chart here that explains that and also talks about kind of a stage in life. where you have opportunities for tax utilization. So if you're under 70, why 70? 70 is the latest where you can start collecting Social Security. You can wait till later, but you get no additional benefit. So it doesn't make sense to. People typically, you can start Social Security as soon as 62, Medicare at 65, required minimum distributions start at 73. So that applies to any tax deferred account. Once you turn 73, you have to start taking money out. And in about 9 years, it'll change to 75. So it's an opportunity, in other words, to use taxes to your advantage. And I'll talk about this in detail, try to walk through the mechanics. So this maps out, this is work I do for all of my clients, and just one slide, by the way. But once we develop a plan with cash flow, spending all this, we can map out what we think their tax bill will be every year and for the rest of their life. We know current tax law. We know what is scheduled to change. We don't know what new proposals will happen in the future, however. So we can illustrate this and say, you're going to have a bump in your tax bill due to the sunsetting tax law provisions. Your tax bill is going to go up by about 3% 2 years. And then we can map this and say, well, you're going to retire here, and maybe that's about 60. Then we're going to turn on Social Security at 70. But since we're not collecting a lot of cash flow, we have this period of lull years where your tax bill we expect to be fairly low. And you're going to be really happy when your CPA tells you get a great big tax refund that year. I'm going to remind you that the government will get their taxes later on once you have to start taking money out of those tax deferred accounts. And we'll try to find a solution. So common traits, well, small or maybe no pension. A lot of those are going away. I believe MEPSers phased out in 97, if I'm not mistaken, so maybe not too many MEPSers participants in this room. Social Security, not yet taken, so you're still deferring that. Maybe you have some charitable thoughts. You want to support some options, and you have diversified your assets. So in other words, you don't have all of it in your 403B. Maybe you have some large unrealized capital gains elsewhere we could plan for. But these are the decisions we walk through. Where should I be saving my money? Maybe I'm 60 and thinking about retiring, and I got a lot in my TIAA account. Is that the best place to keep putting? I get that question a lot. Obviously, some benefit plans here with the payout of any unaccrued sick payout leave. Something to talk to HR if that's an issue as you're leading up to HR, just to be mindful of what those compensation or contributions will be in your final year of work. Where do I start taking money from first? A lot of people default to that Roth they may have started. I'm going to take the Roth out, Nick, because it's no taxes. Well, you're not going to pay any taxes anyway, so it's probably not a good place to take money out of. So thinking about where we're pulling the levers, as I say, do we pull from tax deferred, some from Roth, maybe there's taxable assets, or maybe you have a bank account where you don't have to worry about paying any taxes to get to that cash. Should you think about Roth conversions? That's a big one I've been talking to a lot of people about. I don't believe TIAA allows an in-plan Roth conversion. However, you are allowed to contribute to the designated Roth within TIAA. When do I take Social Security? What form? What does my wife get, or husband, or spouse? How does that work? Should I give some to charity? When? How much? That didn't stop yet. Okay. So a common scenario, I walk through with clients is, again, just as we went through initially, develop the net worth statement and locate their assets. Well, and then we get a great idea. We have money in the bank. We have money in a brokerage account or all these other sources. But understanding, again, where the tax benefits entail in some of these things. So you get no tax benefit for putting money in your bank, of course. 403B down here, 401k. Get a tax deduction going in, but it comes out taxable. Again, as I just mentioned, we expect future tax rates we know are going to be slightly higher. I have no clue in 15, 20 years from now. Brokerage account, you have to think about interest income, dividend income, capital gains taxation. Roth accounts, no tax deduction up front, but you get it all tax-free when you take it out. And 401k, that wouldn't apply to TIAA. They don't allow after-tax contributions. But, you know, again, thinking about what happens with all these dollars, I also want to mention the change for beneficiaries. So this came about 2 years ago, the Secure Act 2.0. But beyond your lifetime, any beneficiary other than your spouse. As they inherit these accounts, they are required to deplete that account over a 10-year period and pay any accompanying taxes. So as I've talked about with clients a lot over the past year plus now, is thinking about that exact issue. Well, when you pass away, chances are if you have children, they might be in the high earning years of their lifetime. So if you're going to leave them with a lot of tax deferred money, they're going to pay more in taxes on that wealth as they're required to distribute it. And the big winner is the IRS of that money. So is there a better way? Roth conversions. That's what I talk about with folks. So one sample scenario we could walk through here. Cash in the bank. We got an investment account or brokerage account. We have IRA or tax deferred money, and then we have a Roth. So putting this together with spending plans, I have software that I can walk people through the scenario to say, well, if we spend X dollars from here, Y dollars from there, Z dollars, we know your tax bill will be this. So it's a way to use the tax system to our advantage. Use your standard deduction at least. Be mindful of where you run into any taxes on your capital gains. That's a surprise for a lot of folks when I share this. If your total income for this year is under $94,050, including any capital gains, you don't pay any federal taxation on your capital gains. Michigan will get you for a piece, 4.25%. But in structuring this, if that's a scenario that's applicable to you, to say, well, that retirement green zone, those years where we don't expect much income, you could live off capital gains in that scenario potentially and not pay the IRS anymore. And if that doesn't apply, we have another option called a Roth conversion. So what a Roth conversion is in essence, you have money in a tax deferred account. So your 403B, 401k, or maybe you rolled it over to a traditional IRA. But the key is that money is tax deferred. You're going to pay tax when it comes out. So if we're thinking mindfully about tax strategies here, well, Nick, I don't need the money. Why would I take it out and pay tax? Well, I can walk through that situation and say, well, if we move this money to a Roth, it's called a conversion. You're taking money out of the traditional IRA, putting into a Roth IRA. It's a conversion. It does not count towards the annual contribution limit. It's a separate item. When you convert that money, it is taxable when you do that. But now that money is in a Roth IRA. And the reasons for doing that is one, the Roth grows tax-free for the rest of your life. Two, you're never required to take money out of that Roth. And three, it also passes to beneficiaries completely tax-free. Yes, they still have to take it out over a 10-year period, but they don't pay any taxes on it. So if we're mindful enough in walking through all these bits and pieces, we can come up with that strategy. Well, if we do these Roth conversions for the next year or 3 years or 5 years, we expect this to save you X amount of dollars over your lifetime in total taxes. And yes, there's some assumptions. I said this first, I'm not good at predicting the future. And it's really hard if we don't know when we're going to expire, right? But we do know, again, we have a 12-month window to take advantage of taxes. And this is what that looks like. And we can model this. This picture looks similar to what I had before, although there's a dollar sign here in the previous one. So this will map out the changes. We see a decrease on the back end taxes and an increase in these year's taxes. So yes, it's weighing our options, the pros and cons, but I see it all the time. Late in life, think about paying huge tax bills. Also for folks in the situation where if you're married filing jointly, you get a discount on your tax bill. It's likely for people that are married filing jointly today, at some point in their life, they will be a single tax filer, however. So in that case, the remaining spouse inherits all the assets, most likely, most commonly, but they're now subject to required minimum distributions as well. They have to still take it out based on their age, pay tax now at a single filer rate, which is a lot higher. So, leaving essentially family behind with a bigger tax burden where we can avoid that, that's what I'd like to put my numbers together for, my brain power for, sorry. So here are our tax tables for Medicare. So not only income tax, but it's Medicare costs. And these really make my clients cringe. Has anybody ever heard of IRMA? All right. IRMA's not a nice lady to get a letter from. IRMA looks at your income from 2 years ago and says, guess what? You pay more for Medicare. My clients get this letter. What do you mean? I paid that thing my whole life when I was working. You did, but now you got to pay more. I'm sorry. So they just announced the number effective for 24. I think that was just announced in October. It's actually 212,000, I believe. So it's, again, a guessing game dealing with the government. We don't know the exact number of the year until about October. And they look at that income from 2 years ago. So if you're still working, your income was probably different, but they will add these additional premiums. So Part A is paid for, but Part B and Part D, and knowing that I think Blue Cross and Blue Shield and the retirement healthcare system in here, that's a little bit different, but yes, Medicare Part B does still apply. So we don't want to pay more for these things. Even if you are $1 into that range, you pay more for that entire year. You and your spouse if you're joint filers. So we don't like seeing those costs. It's unavoidable, however. You know, the thing I try to share with people is paying taxes, it means you're making money, but we want to be mindful, are you paying more in taxes than you reasonably should? So the other scenario, I have clients that, you know, take normal distributions and they park a bunch of money in cash and say, well, you really shouldn't do that because you're just paying a lot in taxes you didn't need to. But these things may change, you know, depending on what Congress decides to do. I know there have been campaign pledges of eliminating any tax on Social Security. I have no idea. We also don't know the longevity of Social Security, and Chuck may have some more on that. Just talking about what the income looks like in the future, how much is going to be there for me. And I'll be 40, I might have to be 80 until I can get a Social Security check. I have no idea. Michigan, relatively friendly tax state. I believe there's 4 states that don't tax, no state income tax. Michigan's not one of them. Also proposals possibly from Lansing to increase the retirement deduction. So being able to include more like TAAA distributions and not count them for state income tax. But that is the hardest moving target to plan for, but it's the most impactful to be mindful of. Like I said, if you can hang on to more of your wealth, you're better off. Certainly your family's better off. And also Social Security benefits will be taxable, but that may change. Charitable deductions or contributions, the last one I think I had on this, and we are at 240. So charitable contributions, 2 items I'll talk about on this. One, what I see a lot where people make small donations to various charities throughout the year. So that's wonderful. Tax benefits aren't the primary motive for contributing to causes you support. But if there are tax benefits, we should consider them. So one scenario we have here is this concept called bunching your charitable contributions. So we just have 5 years worth of data here, normal charitable deduction contribution, $6,000 a year. Well, on your tax return, if you're sending money to United Way or whatever it is, that's a charitable contribution. You have to itemize it. However, with tax law changes, we have a high bar before there's any tax benefit. So if standard deduction is $32,000, but all of our itemized deductions don't exceed that, we get no tax benefit. So this scenario of bunching your contributions, again, if you have the wealth and assets to do it, well, maybe we take our next 5 years worth of contributions and just do it this year. Reason being, we now see a tax savings from that. Now, at $50,000 of itemized deductions, it saved us almost $6,000 of taxes. We were planning to do this anyway. We might as well save $6,000 off our tax bill. The other concept called a qualified charitable distribution, it is on here. So a qualified charitable distribution, again, also with charitable intents in mind, but this applies to gifting directly from your retirement accounts. I want to talk about this. You can only do a qualified charitable distribution from an IRA account. It cannot be done from your 403B. You have to be age 70 and a half. Yes, these are strange numbers that Congress, IRS came up with. The day you reach 70 and a half, your half birthday, you can have money sent directly from an IRA to any qualified charity, any 501c3 organization. It is not reported as a taxable distribution to you. It is not taxable to you. It's not taxed to the charitable recipient. So that's a way to have your full, gift go to the cause you support, as opposed to taking it out, paying tax, and then sending a gift. So I run into that a lot, especially for folks, like I said, this part of the country where they never imagined they'd have this type of wealth. So that is it for my slides. We'll get Chuck. Yes, sir.
Just one question on your last point.
Sure.
Would a charitable contribution like that count against the RMD?
Yes. So you can include qualified charitable distributions as any part of your required minimum distribution. So the ages are different. You can do at 70 and a half at QCD, but the RMD required minimum doesn't start till 73. So yeah, you still have a couple years gap where you can do those three.
All right, we need to switch. Sorry,
Yeah.
let that question slip in there. So Chuck can come up, and is it easy to get access to his PowerPoint?
I think I just have to change the window here. Close that one. Chuck, see if we can get you loaded up there.
Real well with the clicker.
A lot of movement here. That's the WARF one. I don't know where yours might be. We might have to call the IT team again.
Well, they did.
I thought they had it on the screen there for a second.
They're on the desktop,
Oh,
where they moved it and that.
it's a team of 4 of them here. I'm sure.
Oh, but right there. Is it going to pop up automatic?
Should. And I think if you just hit play. Hey, it's there. Steal my water. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Chuck Henrich. I'm owner president of Southwest Michigan Financial. Our offices are right here in Kalamazoo. We are right behind the old Stacy and Theo's restaurant off of Westnedge in the atriums. It's now called Barry's. So if you've never been to Barry's, I'll plug them. They give you a lot of food for the money. So it's a great breakfast place. So if you haven't been there, give them a whirl, give them a try. So I'm tasked with taking our 2-hour Social Security workshop that we teach and paring it down to 15 minutes. So we're going to fly through several topics, just skim across the top of several of them. Going to drill down on a couple topics. And luckily, we have some Q&A afterwards because I know I'm going to miss some of the information that maybe you are looking to get by watching this today. So, okay, so 6 different topics we're going to cover. First off, very important, filling your retirement income gap. What do I call an income gap? When you retire, all of you have a certain lifestyle that you want to continue to live. It's going to require a certain amount of income each and every single month. Social Security is the foundation for most of you. There's some pensions coming your way for some of the people who are watching. But if you have a monthly income target, Social Security is going to get you here. We now have an income gap. So we're going to talk about that real quick. And you can read the other bullet points right there. So I won't read them out loud so we can advance a little quicker here.
May have to hold that mic a little.
A little closer?
Yeah.
Ah, big difference. You can hear that. Okay, so Social Security is retirement planning. As you can see, it's pretty basic. You know how this works. You take your Social Security, pensions, investments, add it all up on a monthly basis, take your income, subtract your expenses, and before you retire, you have to do this math equation to figure out, am I good to go? With Social Security by itself, most of you probably aren't going to be to the place you want to be. So that's where what Nick was talking about. There are some other options that you can do with your TIAA or any other investments that you might have available to generate some income for yourselves. So you have to do that math equation. Now, the retirement cliff happens when that paycheck stops. All of you, as I just said, are going to have a certain requirement of income to live that lifestyle. Some of you might want to take trips over to Europe every year. I have folks from Western Michigan coming into my office, and the lifestyle that they want to live, it's all different. Everybody in this room and everyone watching tonight has different plans for their retirement. I have some people that Europe, it's not really something I want to do. I want to go out west and hit all the national parks. They know that the United States has a lot of things to offer. Others might want to travel the world. So you decide what that lifestyle is, but you have to do the math to figure out how much income do I need each and every month to make that happen. As I said, Social Security is going to fill a lot of that requirement. This is where the gap happens. And that's where you have your pensions, your investments to fill that gap. So let's talk about why Social Security is the foundation for most people in retirement. So first off, it's one of the largest retirement assets out there. On average, the average retiree, Social Security makes up 1/3 of their income. Second of all, Social Security, it's the best annuity product that you can purchase. Annuities, are they that great? Well, you might have some with your TIAA products. Social Security is an annuity because you're going to get a monthly deposit for the rest of your life. Now, Nick mentioned a couple things about Social Security. Is it still going to be around? I took out that slide actually, and he made me think I should have kept it in. What? So basically, if nothing changes with the laws around Social Security, we are now in our second year where the money coming in to the Social Security Trust Fund from taxes does not equal the amount going out to recipients. If that model does not change, you're going to see a 23% decrease in your Social Security check in the year 2035. Now, I like to joke around that if you're 50 and above, it's probably not going to happen. That's what I've been hearing for the last, 10, 15 years. And if you think about it, politicians are not out there campaigning on a platform saying, vote for me, I'm going to reduce your Social Security. They know that the 50 and above voting bloc, they're the largest voting bloc out there. So they know they have to fix some of the problems with Social Security. It's probably not going to happen next year, but by the time we hit 2030, 2032, we'll probably see some changes. Unfortunately, for young Nick over there who's turning 40, you might have to wait until you're 80. I don't know. It's our kids and our grandkids that are probably going to see the changes with Social Security. Everyone in this room, besides Nick, we should be okay. We're going to get what was promised to us. So an annuity product is going to pay out as long as you do. And also, Social Security could be one of the most important decisions you make as it relates to your income planning for retirement. You can make good decisions. You can make not so good decisions. But we can find out depending on how you take Social Security. You might leave 30,000, 50,000, even up to 150, $170,000 on the table if you don't do Social Security correctly. And we'll look at a quick example. Now, Social Security has lots of different moving parts and pieces to it. Most of us are familiar with, hey, the retirement benefit. So with the retirement benefit, this is based upon your own work record, your earnings history, and this is what will be deposited into your bank account under your name. We also have the spousal benefit. So some of us, our spouses stayed home for many years, raising kids, taking care of the household, and their work record is not at the same level as what yours might be. So they might be able to get the spousal benefit, which could give them up to 50% of your benefit of Social Security. Then, well, for married couples, unfortunately, in retirement, one of you is going to pass away. So then you have to start looking at survivorship benefits. And on top of that, we have other areas. So maybe you were married and your spouse passed away. We'll talk about that. Even if you've been remarried, you might be eligible for a widow or widower's benefit. And also, disability is part of the Social Security program as well, but we're not going to spend much time on that today. So with that, where can you get help? Where can you get your questions answered with Social Security? Well, first off, as you will find out if you don't know already, there are a lot of options, a lot of different ways on which you can put Social Security together, especially for married couples. Do you both turn it on early? Do you both defer? Everything in between? A lot of options. Can you just go to the Social Security office here in Kalamazoo and fire away a lot of questions? You can, but they have been instructed not to give advice. They can answer simple questions, but if you're there asking them, well, is it better if I file at age 64 or 65 with my husband delaying? They're not allowed to answer those types of questions. So you need to find a financial professional to help you go through certain calculations and help you figure out and get to a better way to draw Social Security. So who can provide reliable advice? Financial professionals here in the Kalamazoo area. We have several of them in the room today. So my business card is on the handouts. Okay, the first question I usually get is, when should I start taking Social Security? I think the better question to ask yourself is, how long am I going to live in retirement? I know none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know the answer, but we do know that, well, my mom and dad, my grandparents, aunts and uncles, they all lived to be in their 90s. So maybe you have some longevity in your genes. So chances are you're healthy, you're still exercising, you don't weigh 450 pounds. You could live to be into your 90s, or maybe the opposite end. Every male in my family passed away at age 76 from heart issues. Dang it. I mean, you know your own history. So that can play a role in how you decide to take your Social Security. Now, the basis of Social Security has to do with your full retirement age, and it's based upon when you were born. If you were born in the 1950s, your full retirement age is somewhere at age 66. For those of you who were born 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. That is your 100% benefit with Social Security. And that's where all the different options start coming into play. If you want to file at age 62, wait until age 70. So let's take a look at that. So I have a little speedometer here. This one is for folks who are full retirement age of 66. And you can file at age 62. That's your first option to file. But you're locking in 75% of your full retirement age benefit. So basically a 25% reduction in your Social Security by filing age 62. And as I get the speedometer moving again, this will take us to our full retirement age of 66. And over here on this side, you can see the percents. The closer you get to your full retirement age, the closer to 100% that you receive. And if you decide to delay past your full retirement age, that's going to increase by 8% each and every year. So if you wait until age 70, you're actually giving yourself a 32% bump on what your full retirement age is. So lots of options between age 62 and age 70. Now, for those of you full retirement age 67, I'll just hit these buttons pretty quick, but you can see the numbers. At age 62, you're only going to get 70%. So not as much as those that were born in the 1950s. And if you delay until age 70, well, you miss out on one of those 8% bumps, but you can still get 124%, of your full retirement age benefit. So again, lots of options, lots of mathematical combinations. So that can be confusing. So let's throw some actual numbers there. Instead of looking at percents, what do we mean? Here's a person, full retirement age 66. What if they wanted to retire at 62, turn on their Social Security? Now they have a $1,500 a month benefit compared to waiting for their full retirement age, 66, which would be a $2,000 benefit in this example. Let's drill down on that. That's a $500 a month difference. So over the course of a year, if you delay from age 62 to 66, you're going to pick up an additional $6,000 per year. And over a 20-year period, that will put you into your 80s. That can be a $120,000 difference. Now, you have to start thinking, what are other options? What are other potential streams of income that I have? It's like, I would like to have this $120,000 more by delaying filing for my Social Security. So instead of going at age 62 and filing at age 66, well, that's 4 or 5 years where if you're not turning on your Social Security, you still have a lifestyle that you want to live. You need income. Where's it going to come from? So it's one of these, microphone's going to move. It's one of these situations where if you don't turn on your Social Security, you have to pull your money from somewhere, your retirement accounts. Or some people are, I'd rather leave my retirement account alone as long as I can. So maybe you turn Social Security on earlier. So a lot of options, and everyone has different opinions about that, different comfort levels. But you have to do the math to figure out if I turn on Social Security early versus full retirement age, maybe delaying until 68, 69, 70. Do the math and figure out if I don't turn on Social Security now, how much am I going to have to take from my retirement nest egg? If you have a good sized nest egg, you can make that work. Maybe you don't, maybe it won't work. So a lot of calculations, there's a lot of calculators and a lot of decision making. So why might you want to file immediately? Well, first off, you're still working and you just, wow, my job's unbearable. I can't stand it. I need to retire. I need to do something different. Maybe that's happening to you. Maybe you're willing to sacrifice some retirement income to get Social Security turned on sooner than later. You're not healthy. Or maybe, and Nick, I know you've heard this too, some people, I don't think Social Security is going to be there 15, 20 years down the road. So I want to turn it on now and get some of the money out that I paid into the system. Well, maybe that's not you. If you're looking at filing later, maybe you want to maximize your retirement income. There's also spousal planning to consider. For married couples, you know that when one of you passes away, you drop the lowest Social Security and you keep the highest one. So there are ways, strategies that you can try to maximize maybe one of those Social Securities and turn on the other one earlier, or maybe you can push both of them off for a little bit of time. Again, it's just doing the math. Or maybe you're one of those people, as I mentioned earlier, you're healthy, you have longevity in your genes. So maybe it makes more sense to delay Social Security. Or if you're still working, why would you turn on Social Security if you're earning more than those earnings thresholds, which we'll talk about in a minute? But if you have a paycheck, I don't think it makes that much sense to turn on your Social Security. So as far as calculations, what you have to do is think about how much can I earn from Social Security over my lifetime? What's my total benefits? How much will your check be each month? How long would you potentially receive it for? And again, I know we don't have a crystal ball saying you're going to live to be 78 or 88, but average lifespan 80 to 82, you can do the math. So look at your lifetime benefits. Very important. So there's more than 1,000 different ways in which you can take Social Security. So we recommend, and we'll help you do this in our office, Social Security maximization calculations. That's how you get the most each and every month. And then you also have to do a time value of money calculation. And that is, how do you get the most over your expected lifespan? So two different calculations, they sound very similar, but this can really help you zero in on certain ways in which you can take your Social Security. So as I mentioned earlier, there are some good solid ways in which you can put your Social Security plan together. And then there may be not so solid ways. As an example, married couple, you both take at age 62 over your expected lifetime. You can see the dollar, a little under $500,000. What if you wait until your full retirement age for both people? Age 70. What if you kind of delay one, turn one on a little bit earlier? Or what if you use some other type of combination? Potentially, the best strategy could give you an extra couple $100,000 over your lifetime. So you really have to find those calculators. You have to do some of the math. You just can't say, I'm retiring, I'm turning on Social Security, end of story. Well, what if you live to be 90 or 95 and you just locked in your age 62 benefit amount? You're leaving a lot of money on the table. So, Social Security trivia question. At what age can a widow or widower begin receiving survivor benefits? Any idea? Like, what are we talking about? The answer is age 60. So, a widow or widower can claim a survivor's benefit from Social Security starting at age 60. So if you were married and you had a spouse pass away and you're not remarried, well, shouldn't say that. If you had a spouse pass away, you have the ability to claim a survivor's benefit as a widow or widowers. Now, if you remarry, the second bullet point here, if you remarry before your age 60, can't do it. But if you remarry after age 60, you have the ability to claim a widow or widower's benefit from Social Security, turn on that stream of income, and delay your own personal Social Security. So you can push that off until full retirement age, push it off until age 70 if you want. And then you would switch to your own Social Security. So if we have anyone watching on Zoom today or anyone here, that's an option if you were not aware of it. And that can start at age 60, not 62. So protecting survivors benefit. Also, married couples going into retirement, one of you is going to pass away first. So some interesting bits of information here. More than 60% of all elderly persons with incomes below the poverty level are women. And the interesting thing about that is more than half of the elderly widows now living in poverty were not poor before the passing of their spouse. So we still see a problem across our country where proper planning did not take place when you look at survivorship scenarios. There are situations where one spouse has Social Security and a pension, and then the other spouse has their Social Security. But if you didn't take your pension correctly, didn't leave anything for the surviving spouse, that person passes, all of a sudden there goes a pension, there goes Social Security. So instead of 3 streams of income, surviving spouse, in these examples, the surviving wife has 1 stream of income left. So they just lost a lot of money. Can they still live the lifestyle that they want as an individual for the rest of their life? So survivorship scenarios, something that you need to look at. As an example, just quick money here. So George and Mary, here's a couple, they each have a pension, each have Social Security. You can see if George passes away, you keep the higher Social Security, which was his. You drop his pension, you drop Mary's lower Social Security amount. So the end result is household income is reduced by 38% in this survivorship scenario. So before you retire, those of you who are still working, crunch the numbers, see what happens 10, 15, 20 years down the road if he passes first, if she passes first, and see what happens with your income to make sure that the surviving spouse will have enough to live the lifestyle that they want to. So another quick trivia question here. How many years did you have to be married to receive Social Security benefits from a former spouse? 2 hands worth. That's right, 10. So the answer is 10 years. So here are the rules. For those of you watching, those of you in the room today, if you are divorced and you haven't remarried, you can receive benefits off a former spouse. If you were married for at least 10 years, you are at least 62 years of age. You are unmarried. If you get remarried after a divorce, can't do the former spouse. You are not entitled to a higher Social Security benefit off your own work record. And you've been divorced for at least 2 continuous years. So if you are divorced and you're not remarried, you have an option to look at your former spouse where you can turn on Social Security based upon their work record. But what this bullet point means, if you have higher earnings than an ex-spouse, you're going to get your work record, your Social Security benefit, not a former spouse. So that's an option for you as well. Another question, can you work and still receive Social Security benefits without any type of penalty? The fact that we're dealing with faculty here, I have a lot of folks from Western come in my office and they don't know when they're going to stop working. It's like, what about age 70? Well, if I feel like teaching, I'm still going to teach. It's like I hear it a lot. So can you still take your Social Security and still teach, still work? Well, the answer is it depends on your age when you decide. So if you are 62 years of age, up until you hit your full retirement age, you can make for this year, Nick, I think you had this number, a little over $22,000. For every $2 that you go over that threshold, you're going to lose $1 of your Social Security benefit. So again, if you're maybe thinking about doing some part-time teaching or retiring and then helping your friend out at her store, his store that he's had, it's like, I want to work a couple days a week, figure out how much money you're going to make. Because if you're over this threshold, maybe it doesn't make sense to turn it on. Now, in the year that you do hit your full retirement age, you can basically make $5,000 each and every month. Anything over that, $3 over that threshold, for every $3, you're going to lose one. But the nice thing, once you hit your full retirement age, there's no penalty whatsoever. So you can earn $1 million and you're still going to keep every dollar of your Social Security. So, next question. You already elected Social Security, but now you realize, wow, retirement's not for me. I got to go back to work. I can't sit at home. So you go back to work, but you already turned on your Social Security. What options do you have? You can change your mind within the first 12 months of taking your Social Security. You just have to give back all the money that Social Security paid you, and they will reset the clock as though you never took Social Security before, and then it will continue to grow and get bigger each and every year until you decide to turn it on again. But you only get one do-over, you don't get two. So with that, concluding thoughts here, there's so many different ways in which you can turn Social Security on. We just brushed the surface on some of these topics, married couples, being divorced, a widow, widower. If you still want to work, I know that Western Michigan has an option where you don't have to teach every semester. You can dial it back to working one semester. What does that mean for your Social Security? Depends on your age. So look for a financial professional to help you go through the different scenarios and help you figure out the best way to take Social Security. So with that, that was my condensed version. And now I guess we have time for Q&A for both Nick and myself. So hang on a minute with that.
Great. Great with you.
Guess we share.
Yeah, sure. I can talk loud.
As long
Basically, yes, so long as Zoom can hear.
Yeah, and I think we try to stick with the microphone even for the question.
Perfect.
So one thing could be if you have a question, they may repeat it just so that people on Zoom can hear. So
And then someone's watching Zoom for questions?
yes. He's got his laptop, so he's watching.
He's got it open. Okay.
Okay.
One of the questions that was sent to us by email had to do with TIAA, whether you take an annuity or just manage your RMD. Does that make sense?
I think so. You want me to take that?
Yeah.
So if this is right, taking an annuity, basically annuitizing TIAA, so that's an option. So TIAA is an insurance company. I'll try to be as clear as possible. Within TIAA, you have a number of investments. TIAA traditional, that is a fixed annuity. Be mindful of if you have money in that, if it is through the contract that was funded by Western contributions, that money is illiquid. To answer the question, frankly, it is a specific decision. I can't say blankly or blanket advice, yes, one is better than the other. An annuity is guaranteed income. You don't have to think. You get a paycheck for the rest of your life. The other option is you're tolerating some risk in market fluctuation. So there's no best answer that's a good fit for everybody. That's where, to Chuck's point and everything we had up here, you got to do the math, come up with what's right for you. Yes.
Nick, I have a quick question. So I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Front row. For 403B, 457B,
Yes.
if I want to make draft contributions of the Western, there is no income limit. If I look at the total family income, so whatever I can maximize my 403B, 457B to draft,
Right.
but there is no income limit.
Correct. So the question is about Roth contributions. So within TIAA 403B or 457, you can elect to have your contributions go into a designated Roth as part of that plan. There is no income limit for doing that. You can make $1 million a year. There's no additional item on your tax return you need to check or calculate. For a Roth IRA, that's where you can be phased out of being able to contribute to a Roth IRA based on your income. So yes, within the 403B, anything that's part of your employer, those income limits do not apply.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Hey, you want
So I'm aware this is a very difficult question for you, but I need clarification because there are a lot of agents, and then I cannot find any answers on the Social Security website. So I have a green card. When I'm retired, I'm not staying here. So what happens? So I can get the money for Social Security anywhere I'm in the world, or I lose everything. Because then the Canadians are treated in different ways because Canada and US have a particular kind of deal. So I heard so many different things about it. So can you answer this? I know it's a difficult question, or I have to go solve this fast.
I don't have a black and white answer.
Oh, it should be. It should be. So.
Yeah, I don't come across that scenario very often, so I'll defer to you, Nick, if you
Yeah.
know the rules.
I could try.
There are many persons like me,
There-
commissioners.
Yes, so the question, well, you read it in the microphone, but if you leave the US, so to qualify for a Social Security benefit, a retirement benefit, you have to have 40 quarters of earnings. You can earn a maximum of 4 quarters during the year. I don't know the number this year, it's like $2,000 in earnings counts as 1 quarter. So if you don't have 40 quarters of earnings, you will not get a benefit check to begin with. However, if you are afforded a benefit check, then yes, they have your Social Security number, and if you live in another country, you should still get that check.
So can you, what does 40?
So you have to pay it enough to the system before you qualify for a retirement benefit.
Yeah, this.
So it's
I paid
roughly,
part 20 for 20 years.
Yeah,
And then
so
we pay for another 5 years.
you qualify, yes. So you should still receive your check. That is a question to guarantee with Social Security that they have a checking account essentially to deposit in. So, that's not a question I honestly have had in my 13-year career. Usually it's people coming and staying here, but I have yet to experience someone that goes elsewhere. But yes, you're exactly right. I'm sure there's a lot of folks in this university that would fall in that same camp. But my understanding, as soon as you qualify, it doesn't matter what your citizenship status is or where you live, you still are
So
entitled to that.
where my bank is also. Okay. So probably I have to go to this office. So is this office?
Local Social Security is on Drake Road.
Yeah.
Drake Road, okay.
Then Nick, this is for you.
Okay. All right, we have a question from Zoom. I would like the presenters to address how and when to annuitize TIAA investments versus slowly draining other investments for annual income. I'd also like presenters to share their thoughts on investing in long-term care. So I think I mentioned the TIAA, whether or not to annuitize and when is an individual circumstance. I will say some of the payout ratios, so that's the math. You can do that calculation right on TIAA's website. It's pretty easy to model it. You can select it. How much, what portion do I want to annuitize? When do I want it to start? Am I married? What's my spouse's birthday? It will tell you what that payment will be. It lists about 7 or 8 different options. You want a 75% survivor benefit. You want a 20-year certain payout. So it has to be an individual circumstance, but some of the payout ratios, you take your bucket of assets and how much they're going to pay you, it's close to 8 or 9% a year. It's a very generous payment. But the question is, do you want to lock all that up and be stuck with the taxes of paying that money out every year? And there's a part 2 on that question. I'm going to try to address it. Long-term care. So I'd say long-term care, it's not an investment. I wouldn't put my money into it expecting a return. It's insurance. There's 2 very different forms of long-term care insurance. I'll just comment quickly. One, traditional, where you pay in for the rest of your life and you get nothing until you need a benefit. That business has slowly been dying for about 25 years, but we find more products. Again, it's an insurance product where they operate like a life insurance policy, but if you need long-term care insurance at some point in the future, it will pay for that. I find those more attractive because the thought is if you don't go into the home, well, there's still money that will pay out to heirs or beneficiaries. They typically entail a higher upfront cost, but they're not all the same.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, at the class we teach each month here at Western and KVCC, we talk about long-term care. Don't know if I should talk to the camera since I'm talking to. But basically what Nick was saying, traditional long-term care, you pay premium each and every year. Every year you have a birthday, that premium goes higher. Then what I call combination products, basically your premium is buying a benefit, a bucket of benefits. If you never need long-term care, that benefit goes to your beneficiaries tax-free. As Nick was saying, that's tax-free wealth transfer. Or if you do need it for long-term care, you have that bucket of benefits that you can use to pay long-term care bills. So if you're not quite sure with that question, is it worth spending money to buy a product that I might not ever use? Maybe the combination products would be a good fit for you, because if you don't use it for long-term care, you have that tax-free wealth transfer, which is a tax benefit for your heirs, generally your kids. And as far as the first part of that question, Nick didn't use his hands, but I just wanted to go, it's one of these things. Some people prefer to not spend their own nest egg money and turn on any other available stream of money compared to reaching into their nest egg first. Others, well, let me burn through some of my nest egg just to make everything else grow each and every year that I don't turn those annuities on. And it's an individual decision. Here in this room, on Zoom, probably half the people would say, no, take your money first, or the other half would say, no, use the annuity. There is no black and white answer.
Right.
I want to ask a very general question. I'm basically asking whether your companies provide this sort of service. For a lot of couples who retire, one of them handles the finances. And the worry is, if the person who handles the finances passes first, how do we ensure the person who hasn't been handling finances is basically supported in such a way that it's occur financial conditions like that? Do either of your companies actually provide that? Is that the sort of thing?
Yes, I believe both of us. Just looking at Nick's presentation, I can tell that they put together a detailed financial plan. We put together retirement financial plans for our clients.
I'm not talking about a plan. I'm talking about day to day, month to month, or whatever it is for the surviving spouse for the rest of his or her life. So I'm talking about basically person.
Yes. And as part of those plans, they're put together in such a way that the person who doesn't do the finances in the house has a good understanding of what they have. So if you were to pass away, would your spouse be able to take over everything you do? Maybe not. And if that's the case, they're unable to do that. That's where I believe both of us would be able to assist.
Yeah, so that's a great question. You're exactly right. I run into that more often than not. Our firm Mercer, we are a fiduciary. So what that means is every activity I do for my clients is in their best interest. So in those cases, oftentimes it's, well, you don't have to worry about deciding on your investments and reading all this literature. That is my responsibility to do what's right for you. So I find it a lot where oftentimes it's, white, female relationship does not like talking about investments. They are very conservative. It scares them. And men, I'm one of them, selfishly, but we tend to take more risk with them. So also the services behind us. Well, do you have trust work? Do you have an estate? Is that up to date? Are the right people named? Should we consider naming a corporate entity to serve in those capacities, for example? So that, children aren't worried about bickering. Well, dad said he wanted this. I'm not sure mom said that. Put it in writing. And that could be a whole separate conversation and presentation, frankly, to the estate planning topic. We'd love to come back.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one more thing, and a general one. 2003, I took what I regard as the absolute best seminar I've ever attended. It all had to do with retirement. Earlier in my career, I was thinking of personal finance. It was very, very helpful. I think a professor by the name of offered it. It was an entire term. We met once a week. Entire term.
Great.
Is Western ever going to provide that again? Because to my knowledge, they have that.
Yeah, I believe Dr. He passed away in 2019, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and Dr. Issa no longer is with us. He did pass away 3 years ago. I'm still in touch with his widow. He was a colleague of mine, Dr. Wallings. We've asked human resources at Western, if they would be interested in doing some of that. We haven't got a very good answer from them. So as far as I know, the answer is no from the administration. That's sort of why we thought, okay, we're going to do a little something here as WARF to, we can't replicate what Dr. Issa did because it took so long and so on, and he was a financial planner on.
But the issues are different. Comparing people who are just about to retire, to people who just started Western and haven't thought these issues through.
Yeah.
Need to put together a strategy.
Yeah, that's true. That's
years.
true. Yeah, no, I mean the broader idea of education, because what we've done as WARF is for those who are retired. Now we're moving back a little bit. Those about to retire. And your point is we should go back 20 years further and try to get those people too. And the only way we can is to get like 25 more people like you, who not only would be interested in it, but also maybe provide some of the information that would be needed. So I don't know. We're not too hopeful on repeating that scenario, and it's a shame. But that's what
We have one more
I
question.
encourage you to put in some comments with HR to, hopefully
Yeah.
encourage more of that.
Yeah, I think it would be
I
good.
know there have been some changes with the HR leadership in the past several years, and there's an emphasis on that topic, honestly, here. So,
Well, what was the other question?
there's one came in from Zoom. I can take that.
Yeah.
So the question, Western has contracts with TIAA such that wealth management advice, I'll put advice in quotations, does not cost us any money. Do such agreements exist at either of your companies? If not, what kind of fees do you charge for your services? So I will say at Mercer, consultations are no cost. If you expect us to do a lot of work and actual planning and put numbers to paper and guide you, yes, we will have a fee. We are a fee for service company, so we do not get paid any commissions. Fee is based on complexity, but it's a percentage scale, and if you'd love to have that conversation, we will tell you. But we have to get an assessment of your situation. TIAA, they are limited to the type of advice they will give you. Frankly, I have seen that. I have been a part of those conversations with the different TIAA person that might be here every year, and you're not really sure what they're telling you, but it's boilerplate, I will say. So You know, in essence, we're consumers, and if you're not expecting to pay anything, you shouldn't expect to get a whole lot of value in return, in other words. That's my take.
Okay, what we do at Southwest Michigan Financial, we will help you put together your own written retirement financial plan that's customized to your own retirement lifestyle that you want to live. We do that at no cost, no obligation. Now, if you want to implement portions of that plan, implement the entire plan, that's where fees will start. And it's a different scale based upon what you want to do. So kind of like Nick said, I don't have a black and white answer as how much it would cost. It depends on what we're doing. But to put the plan together, no cost, no obligation on your part. So we'd be happy to sit down with you that way.
Arm that went,
Oh.
okay.
Got an arm?
I'm an odd.
Can we give an odd answer?
So what I'm thinking about right now that I'm nervous about as I'm getting is I still have one parent single. And when mother passed, so all of a sudden I'm responsible. And I find out, oh, they have a lot more than I thought. And right now I'm just like holding my own, and I'm trying to say, I think this has big tax implications for the three kids, but I don't know what to do. Would you have something like this? If I can, because my father was the person who had no idea what tax finances, and he just said, "Mom handled it. Here, go find out." That's what I found out. So you could help figure that to size.
Yeah, so I would say yes. Thank you, Chuck. So yes, and I'm sure Chuck did too, but it's just a matter of getting the data to say, well, we need statements to tell us who's the owner, the beneficiary, who has the ability to direct these investments, you know, then ultimately who's responsible for the taxes. You know, if there is some entity like an irrevocable trust is taxed as its own entity, for example, that's where things get very complex. But yes, it's just a matter of let's see what it is and then decide what makes sense. But yeah, we could absolutely help you.
Could you quickly recap the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the microphone was not on for that. So the question was, audience member dealing with inheritance. One parent passed away years ago. Dad didn't want to talk about money, really didn't know much. Then mom passed. We found out there's a lot more wealth than was the case initially thought. So trying to figure out taxes, what do we do, who's responsible, where can this all go? So the answer is yes, we can certainly help with that. Thanks for the reminder. I think that's it for questions. Thank you again for having us.
Thank you again. Appreciate you.
Thank you. This was a nice opportunity. Glad to be part of the first one.
Yeah. And hopefully annual.
Oh yeah. Good.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, Nick and Chuck, got good questions from the audience and also from Zoom. And for you, the audience, thank you so much for coming out. I hope you got at least some of your questions answered. And as Christine says, we're hoping to build on this. So we're kind of encouraged by the turnout here and the interest, and we're interested in providing information. That's what we do at WARF. Again, just a plug. If you are retired or going to be retired, please look at our website and think about joining us. No, we're just trying to help those who are in retirement or approaching retirement. So thank you for your time. Thank you for coming, and thank you both for such great presentations.
Thank you.